Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Playbook. This week's guest is Courtney Chamizo. Courtney, how are you doing today?
I am well. How are you, Joe?
Excellent. Thank you so much for kind of coming on down and taking some time to be on this week's episode.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So let's jump right into it, Courtney. Real estate, obviously, many professions out there, a ton of things you can do. What made you decide to get into real estate, and how long was that process for you, kind of having that initial thought and then becoming licensed and start selling?
It's kind of a weird start. My parents had a bunch of property and they needed to sell it. So I was like, well, let me go to school
And learn how to do it.
learn how to do it. And I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. So just life circumstances, I needed to go back into the work field and
Have some flexibility.
have flexibility, have a higher income, so to say, and that kind of just did it.
So it kind of sounds like to me, to sum it up, you were, kind of real estate. Your parents had some property. They're thinking about selling. You're like, hey, you know what? I got some time on my hands. I mean, obviously being a homemaker, full-time mom is, daunting in itself and a big responsibility. But you're like, you know what? Let me go to school. Let me knock this out. Help mom and dad also make a little bit of money as well.
Yes.
And in turn, you're like, all right, well, I kind of enjoy this. I can not only make more money, but also have a flexible schedule so I can kind of be there for my kids and handle my obligations.
Correct.
Awesome. And how long did it take you from kind of knowing that you were going to do it to kind of help your parents with their properties to actually getting licensed and being able to assist?
Honestly, probably about a year. So not that long. I would say a year.
About a year?
Yeah, but staying home gave me time to study. I just did all my classes online and kind of went.
And kind of moved at your own pace as you were able to, kind of fitting it in there, watching over the kids.
Yeah.
Awesome. So now what is obviously being home for 10 years with the kids, that's a large part of your life. What did you do prior to I don't know if there was a time where you're working and they were in daycare, if you kind of stopped work once your first child was born, but what was your occupation and previous endeavors prior to the children?
Yeah, so I worked up until, so I have 4 kids. My last one was born, and I was a dental assistant for a periodontist. So I assisted him with like oral surgeries and things like that. Wow.
So some of the responsibilities, I got to think, you being in there, obviously, there's a system in place essentially because, for the procedures, it has to be done a certain way. Time, schedule, every appointment, you're probably in and out. So you probably were able to pick up some skills through that kind of help transition into real estate.
Yes. I think, with real estate, there's procedures and steps for everything, but not every transaction's the same. So same with a surgery. There's procedures and there's steps, but not every surgery, once you get in there, is going to be the same.
Absolutely. And just like a real estate transaction, there's a million things that can go wrong. Thinking there's a number of things that could go wrong with surgery. Maybe somebody doesn't respond well to, whatever medicine it is that kind of, if they have to go under or.
Yeah, and most people hate the dentist.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so I was like their calming force.
You're kind of the therapist in the corner, being like, it's going to be okay, soft, soothing voice. Mm-hmm. So that kind of helps someone in real estate too, right? Just having that reassurance from someone that it's going to be okay when they're dealing with not only uncertainty, but stress and anxiety probably in both circumstances, right?
100%.
And then dealing with the kids too. I mean, it's kind of, you're dealing with emotional highs and lows. And I think you kind of, did you see that kind of translate for you into real estate? Like the emotional highs and lows of buyers and sellers through the transaction?
I think so. It's a lot of like organized chaos.
Yes.
So, and running in circles. So just preparing your schedule and then also preparing for going off schedule and just being flexible. Yeah, just being flexible.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, hey, I'm disciplined. I know theoretically what today's supposed to look like. However, I'm prepared for it to go off course at any time, bring it back, and make sure that all my tasks are accomplished by the end of the day.
Yes.
Awesome. So, one thing when you're kind of getting into real estate, I'm sure there's this vision, this grandiose, picture of what it's going to look like and how possibly easy it's going to be and all the money you're going to make and all these wonderful things. But obviously getting into it, sometimes it's a reality check for most. I always like to ask, what's the one thing that you did not expect when getting into real estate?
I didn't think I would have to, I don't even know why I didn't think this, but I didn't think I would have to promote myself. So I think that's where I'm probably most uncomfortable.
So like the branding piece.
Yes.
And what is that? So tell me a little about that thought process. So when you're getting into real estate, is it that you thought there'd be enough business within your network to kind of keep you going, just like subtle word of mouth? Or did you think that more of putting some stuff out on social media without really promoting it or being, let's say, aggressive advertising, that it would just naturally organic come to you?
Yes, more so social media and just, you always say people want to get to know you and see your face and stuff. So it's different if I'm meeting a client first time one-on-one than putting myself out there, so to say, for the whole world to see.
Yeah, it's one of those things I think you learn over time is people, they build trust by time and experience. And obviously it's the time of you putting the content out, but the experience of you kind of giving away that information and bringing value to the marketplace prior to anybody working with you. And it does take time, but obviously later on, you'll see the fruits later pay off and kind of your initial mindset of, I didn't think I'd have to do this. It kind of becomes, I would say, just part of your routine, more organic and natural where you don't feel like it's work. And it's just kind of part of life without having to be that pushy salesman, kind of with commission breath and all that kind of stuff. So how's it been going? Have you gotten more comfortable with like the social media and putting content out there? Is it still a struggle for you kind of?
I'm definitely trying.
Yes. It takes
I'm definitely trying.
It takes a lot of people a while. I mean, it took me for time too. And I think it's just a matter of routine. And, at some point, I think you just kind of draw that hard line in the sand. Hey, am I more worried about all this nonsense going on in my head that's creating insecurities, which really shouldn't be there? Or am I kind of worried about more of the success? And when you kind of focus on the success and what you want to achieve in your goals, then you kind of start not to paying attention to all the white noise in the background that kind of creates that anxiety for you.
Right.
So, yeah, and a lot of agents do unfortunately have to deal with that. As far as real estate, obviously, coming on board, you got into success quicker than most. You got into production right out the gate. You've been able to maintain that and then kind of have some consistency in your production where it's not all ups and downs, hills and valleys like a lot of agents starting off. What are some things that you did to allow you to not only accomplish success right out the gate, but also kind of maintain it and make sure that you are consistent with it?
I would say I have to know my limits. So even with like taking leads, like I know we're allowed to take so many, but can I physically take so many? So I think it's just like know your limits and kind of stick with that. So because then if you take on too much and you become overwhelmed, then you're not really going to perform well with what you already have. So it's just kind of learning through experience. What it sounds like to me is, you have the option to do this, but you self-regulated yourself and created your own governor. Yeah, and then you allowed through time you to see what I call law of diminishing returns. Like you're going to see, hey, all right, I can keep going up, but there's some point where I become less productive the more that I take or the more that I do, where it's just you kind of becoming self-aware of where that middle ground is for yourself and where, hey, this is the ideal spot, whether it's working with taking 10 appointments a month, working with 5 buyers at a time, whatever certain metric it is that to kind of help govern yourself allows you to actually produce at a higher level rather than, what a lot of people think, hey, the more leads I get, the more business I'm going to do type of thing. yes.
So, and then is that something that always came natural to you? Because I think one thing in real estate is realtors lack discipline or the able to self-govern or become self-aware, things like that. Is that something that was just natural and has always been a part of you? Or is that something that recently, whether it was, being a dental hygienist or a mom to the kids you kind of developed, through time?
I would say it was always probably it's built into my personality. Because just like, my school. So I did it all online by myself. Didn't show up for a teacher or anything. So, yeah, I would say I've always just been self-disciplined. I've probably learned more over the years, especially with having 4 children. There's a lot to navigate, and they were all so involved in things. They still are. So it's just being organized and like sticking to a schedule, and then just holding yourself to that standard.
And then obviously, I think that most agents, they kind of get into it, and most people get into it, they want to be their own boss. They want A, unlimited income potential, B, I can kind of create my own schedule. Where most agents fail is they're not self-disciplined to kind of put in the work and do it. Do you feel that, because these are some questions that, especially me too, talking to so many agents, seeing, do you feel that the kids serve as a motivation? And let me rephrase it. What I see is that a lot of people who tend to have more on their plate and have more responsibility tend to have greater success and fit in tighter windows because they're more militant with their schedule. Do you feel as you became busier in life that you were able to become more efficient with your schedule and actually accomplish more in a day than you would have in the past, even though you have more on your plate? Did it kind of work for you in that manner?
Yeah, because you have to add everything to your schedule, and you have to use it and follow it. If not, you're gonna forget things. You're not gonna show up to appointments. You're gonna have chaos. Someone's not gonna eat dinner. It's just.
So he's not getting picked up from practice or school, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and then what happens? You're just creating more of a problem for yourself.
Yeah.
So.
No, you're 100% accurate on that. And then as far as like with the schedule and the responsibility, so you have 4 kids, all 4, I'm assuming, are on somewhat of a different schedule. They're all doing probably something different. What tools do you use personally to stay disciplined and make sure that you're not missing anything? Is it a simple like calendar that you're putting it in and then it has all the events and maybe color coding it? Do you use multiple tools? How does it work for you?
I would say I put it all in my phone. So it's my calendar. But so just scheduling and then communication. I think communication's important.
Absolutely.
So everybody knows what they're doing, where they're supposed to be, what's going on. Even if it's a week from now, I like to mention it. So it's been heard before.
And just keep kind of staying on top of it. And, they say it takes, I think the average human 7 times to hear something before they finally get it. So it's just those constant reminders that, hey, mom's on a tight schedule here. We got to go. But obviously you're getting the alerts. It's on your phone. So that way you ensure that you are able to not only handle all of your tasks in a day and you don't forget about anything, but also an efficient manner where it helps you kind of stay on track for time-wise. Because obviously some of those responsibilities, picking up kids, activity, school, whatever it might be, those are things you might get a little window, but you really can't run late for.
Right.
Yeah. So awesome. I'm glad that I think is one thing that a lot of agents struggle with. So I think it's good that you kind of have that out the gate to create that schedule and the discipline where you're able to kind of fit in your work. And either what I tend to see is agents are all over the place and they're constantly busy with everything, but not really getting anything accomplished. Or B, they're not disciplined, and because they have to self-govern and manage themselves to work, they're like, hey, if the business kind of comes a little bit, I don't want to say exactly like your mentality, but it's like, the business will come to me if I just kind of sit around. Now you got to actually go work. And
yeah, because I think most people who want to be their own boss don't want rules in a way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not necessarily my own boss because my life is also run by these 4 children. So.
Yeah, I think we all have to answer to somebody at the end of the day, right? So that talks a little about the work-life balance. Now, we have a lot of agents that are kind of coming into production. Now, some might be thinking about getting licensed. Some might be newly licensed, struggling a bit, or some might have had success and now are struggling a bit to kind of get back on track with how quick the market is changing and pivoting. As far as yourself, obviously, we've talked a little bit about how you've had the success you have so quickly and maintaining its consistency is just pretty much being self-disciplined, being able to self-govern yourself, self-aware of your strengths, weaknesses, where you can kind of hit that law of diminishing returns, and then also working your schedule. But if you were to give an agent who's thinking about getting licensed or who is licensed but not having the type of production that they're looking for, one tip of advice, they're coming to you, they're like, hey, Courtney, how you doing it? What would be that one thing that you would tell them?
So there's a saying, if you aim at nothing, you're going to hit nothing. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just knowing what you want. Why are you going into it? What do you want in return? Mm-hmm. And then kind of just how are you going to get there? Either little goals along the way, or maybe you have one giant end goal, and then you can ask questions. Mm-hmm. Ask someone to help you. How do I get to my end goal? Mm-hmm. I think don't be scared to ask questions.
And I'm going to sum this up by saying you have a vision, right? You have a vision of what this is going to look like for you at the end. And then what most people are able to do who are able to kind of form a vision is, all right, you tend to vision the end picture first. All right, this is what it's going to look like. This is the summit of the mountain. This is when everything's going to finally work out and I get to the place that I want to go. But in that process, you start to reverse engineer that vision to put those things in place to help get you there. Is that how it kind of worked for you? You're saying, all right, I know this is where I want to go. As you're working towards this, you're starting to realize what you need to do to get there. And those are things that you started to kind of implement in your life that help you stay aligned with your vision for the morals, the principles, your core values, and things you kind of put in place that align with your vision to help you get there?
Yes, correct. I think I always somehow see some sort of an end goal with whatever I'm doing. And then I feel like I know, I know the start point too, but then it's like, how do you fill in the middle?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think that's for most that do have a vision is the start point is getting started. I think the start point is creating the vision, seeing what it looks like at the end, knowing that you got to start somewhere. But it's like, all right, let's start peeling back the layers. And then I think the more action you take and the more you start to align your behaviors and beliefs with your goal, the more detailed you're going to start to become when you're kind of chunking this down to get where you need to go.
Yes.
Because you kind of start learning along the way, and success leaves clues. So as long as you kind of stay alert, self-aware, and align with where you want to go, doing the things that might make you uncomfortable to get there, eventually you're going to get there and you're going to learn what you need to do to get there. And then some people too, I've noticed, once they realize what it takes to possibly get to the vision, might change the vision based on the actions and activities. Yeah. So, well, awesome, Courtney. Well, we greatly appreciate you coming down this week for this week's guest on the Real Estate Playbook. For anybody out there in the real estate market, whether looking to buy, sell, Tampa Bay area, we're going to share all this information on all of our social media platforms as well. But what's the best phone number and best email address for buyers, sellers in the audience to reach out to you on?
My phone number is 813-817-1268. And my best email would be Courtney@54realty.com. So that's Courtney @54realty.com.
Well, we'll definitely get that posted for you. We greatly appreciate you coming down. And we greatly appreciate all of you for tuning in to another episode of the Real Estate Playbook.